Hello, everyone. I am joined by Cavs coach Johnnie Bryant. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Not too bad. I'm Jonesing. The playoffs are here. It's like it's the my favorite time of year. I'm just gonna be an absolute fiend watching hoops for the next several months, and there's nothing better in the world.
Yeah, this is what you do prepare for in the summer during the season to get opportunity to play postseason basketball, right? And I've had experience being here in the playoffs previously, and now to have these fans rooting for us, I can't wait to experience it.
So it's your first year with the Cavs, obviously. I mean, this is like kind of an obvious question, but like, just how far did this season exceed your expectations coming in?
As a staff, we joke about it collectively a lot, right? In the preseason, we go on for. We're in Chicago, and we're trying to get everybody acclimated, and we're like, okay, we want to win the game, so we try to win the game. We didn't do that, and go to overtime, we lose, and it was like, okay, and then you start the season, win five, then you nine in a row. Now Golden State comes to town. They're playing well, win 10, and get to 15, lose to Boston. Then you start putting these stretches together of double figure wins, and now you're sitting on the bench, and after games you're like, okay, are we really that good? And then now you look up, it's 35 games in, and you're still in single digits as far as losses, and you just continue to ride the wave. And it's been a year that I didn't expect. It's been great. It's been fun, and that part of the season is over. Now we're looking forward to the playoffs.
When did you know that, like, oh, we might be something like a different kind of special than like maybe I've been a part of?
Um, I wouldn't say it was a particular game, but we, collectively, like I said, as a staff, we'll be on the bench like, are we really that good? Or, it was a couple games where we're down and we come back and win the game, and like the ball just bounces our way, a shot goes in, or we'll come out, it's supposed to be a big game, and then we have a crazy blowout win. So you start putting those things together, and you're like, wow, like there was one stretch we didn't lose for 5 weeks. Like that's unheard of, right? So when you're putting together those type of stretches throughout the season, you look up and it's like, okay, I guess we are really good.
Did anything, going all the way back to Sarasota, did anything like really jump out at you even at the camp level where you were like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to work the way it did, or I wasn't expecting this guy to be as good as he was? Like, did anything like really buck your expectations like at an individual level?
I was pretty familiar with the roster, but when you look at a team, 3, 4 times a year, it's hard to really gauge who can do what, right? And we had different things that we want to do from previous years, and Ty Jerome, obviously he stood out. I knew Darius was comfortable with Darius just watching him on film, but to realize how fast he is, right? Evan, how talented he is, and how great JA is on the defense end. So it's when you see it every day, you're like, okay, this is different. So I wouldn't say Sarasota was glaring and was like, hey, I got all that information, but it was just day in and day out. You start seeing things, and you start seeing things during the game, and it's like, okay, this is a different group than I expected.
Absolutely. And the one guy that you didn't mention there, because this guy you probably know the best, is Donovan. And your
Yeah,
relationship with Donovan is like super well reported. That like you guys have just been like this,
yeah.
from back in Utah. And did you ever expect to coach him again after you had that time together? I know it's a small world, but did you ever expect to coach him again?
No, but our relationship, I never really stopped coaching him, to be honest. I just wasn't with him, day to day. But, we built a great relationship, like, as you mentioned, that's well documented. And if he had any questions throughout my our time away, I mean, some things are bigger than basketball, right? So it's like, hey, like, what do you think here? And he'll ask me, and I'll kind of tell him. So I wasn't with him day to day, but it was an opportunity where, again, it's not like I'm with New York and he's with Cleveland and we can't talk. Like who's
It's a
doing
community.
it. Exactly. So, but to come back around and coach him again is something special. And for us to put together a historic year together, that's something that, at the end of the day, that we'll talk about for the rest of our lives, not just this moment in time now, but when he's retired, when I'm, you know, later in my coaching career, and we'll sit back and be like, you know what, we were able to accomplish some great things together, and that's ultimately what it's about, is creating those memories, creating those bonds through the game of basketball.
Was there anything, obviously you mentioned you never stopped, being in contact with them, talking to them, talking through things, but getting back into the day to day, was there anything that jumped out at you or was like, oh, this is different about him? Whether it's approach to the game, the way he understood the game, leadership, maturity, whatever it is, anything jump out at you?
The this is being as transparent as possible. I told him probably a month in, I was like, I forgot how frustrating it is to coach you. Um, and I'm hard on him, and he knows that, and he likes to be pushed that way. But it's sometimes like, Donovan, like, okay, this guy is trapping you. Like, why were you trying to split this? So, but it's more in fun, right? But just his growth, his leadership, how vocal he is. I seen it in Utah as he continued to progress. He was very vocal with the group, and he found himself. He's very comfortable in who he is. So, to be honest, nothing really surprised me as far as who he shows on a day-to-day basis.
That makes perfect sense, and you probably wouldn't have a good relationship with him if you never got frustrated. Like no coach ever doesn't get grumpy, especially with their best player.
Yeah,
That's
but but but
important.
but but the reality is, like, even when I'm mad at him, I'm not really mad at him. It's more like I'm pushing his buttons just to get him to respond, and it's more of a mental part of it than anything else. Like, um, there's he told the story about being in Washington, a couple weeks ago, and that got out that I had some choice words for him, but literally before I did it, I told George Niang and Tristan, I said, "Watch this," and so so
I'm
it
gonna
was
light
one
him up.
exactly, and then George was like, "Oh, TT, watch this," and then but it caught everybody by surprise just because of my personality. But he knows at the end of the day, I care about him. And again, our relationship is bigger than basketball, and he knows that I want the best for him, and I want him to be successful in every situation.
Yeah, the best relationships always have that that you have to be honest. You have to be able to be transparent
Abs-
with
I-
someone,
I-
and
Absolutely.
so that makes perfect sense. I wanted to take it kind of back to the macro. Obviously you joined Kenny's staff. Pretty much, I mean, not a 100% turnover for the coaching staff, but a lot of new faces this year. With a very very similar roster year over year. There's a ton of continuity there, and something I've said a lot about what I've appreciated the most about this coaching staff from afar is that it really seems like everyone on this staff wanted to coach the roster they signed up to coach. Like this was a roster that, going into last summer, there was a lot of like, oh, is the too big thing going to work? Is the two guard thing going to work? And it does seem, at least from my seat, that this staff really did believe in that group, in the way this team was structured. Can you talk a little bit about that, about, believing in the core that this team had already put together?
Um, you know, uh, if you look at the group the last 2 years, playoff experience, Kobe um, and his staff has done an unbelievable job, drafting and keeping guys here, making trades. So the group that they put together, he believed in it, we believed in it, right? And it's our job as coaches to figure out what worked, what doesn't work. Hey, this was great previously. This wasn't great previously. So how can we change it? How can we manipulate spacing? Can we change lineups? Can we change combinations? And we did that, right? Last year was a lot of JA and Donovan together. That pairing exactly. Then this year we was like, hey, we know that's good, but let's take a look at Evan and Donovan, right? So now DG and JA together, right? So, it's our job to try to put the pieces to the puzzle together. And once you have an idea, you look at the analytics and see if it supports it, and then that kind of drives the process of development and growth as a group. And we were able to put some things together.
This is maybe a silly question, but something my co-host and I were talking about recently. Is it almost hard to look at the analytics for your group right now because you just don't have any lineups that don't work? Like,
No,
like how do you
it's
figure
not.
out who to play more of when
No,
everything's good?
it's not hard. We believe in an analytics. We believe in what they show us, and sometimes we're sitting and coaching me, hey, what about this? And we look at it, oh, that's not a good idea. And sometimes, we'll make a decision and be like, why didn't we get to this lineup, or we should have did this differently. And every game as a staff, who do you want to finish with? So you know we have finished different ways, whether two bigs or Ja or Evan or Max, Dean, Dre, Ice. Like it's one of those things where you have the information, but then you also have to go on field, right? And we try to do the best that we can. And this group has done a great job sacrificing. And coach, he's done a great job of hammering that home with the group. And, I think it's a little easier to sacrifice when you win 64 games, right? So now it's going to be another element and level of sacrifice on our guys' part in the playoffs, because again, playoffs, matchups that dictate who plays and lineups, combinations, all those things. So now it's like we need everybody on board to achieve the common goal that we have.
All right, last question, and I'll let you get out of here. How do you balance as you head into that postseason the the push and pull of a long playoff series of multiple playoff series where the scouts are better, the intensity is higher, and you're gonna and figuring out how many adjustments to make versus maintaining your core identity. How do you kind of toe that line between, hey, we won 64 games, we're super good the way we are, and we have to tweak X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you ask that question because we literally just talked about that as a staff. You definitely want to double down on your habits, right? But to your point with the game planning and all the adjustments, you have to be able to adjust on the fly. You're not going to be able to, always call a timeout. So that's where the communication piece comes in with the group. And then in the timeout, you make those adjustments. But, we've worked on certain situations throughout the year, whether it's in game or in practice, to where we're prepared to make any adjustments that we need. And again, that's one of those things where we do utilize the analytics to put together a game plan and be like, okay, like this information is good for us. Now we should do this in this type of action, right? And then once we have that primary coverage in place, then it's like, okay, this is what our adjustment will be, right? And then we may have another adjustment. But, at the end of the day, if we can go in with our primary coverages and primary offensive scheme, and we can win 2, 3 games without making a huge adjustment, why not, right? So we're prepared for those situations, but at the end of the day, we have to be who we are. We have to be a competitive group. We got to play together, and at the same time understand that you know it's going to be a little tougher. But we've had physical games before. We had games where we shot it well and won. We had games when we didn't shoot it well and won. So we just got to go in and understand each day is going to be different, and find a way to come out victorious in each game we play.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Johnny. I just said this to Sam, but just wanted to thank you so much for this season. I mean, more than anything, I'm a Cavaliers fan. I love this team, and it's my favorite hobby. And you guys made my favorite hobby super duper fun all year. And it's definitely my favorite Cavs regular season of my life. And so thank you for helping lead the team on the way there, because it was just a dope 6 months, man.
No, thanks for having me. And this is a special, fan base community. And, I've been talking to TT and everybody just kind of around the city. Like, wait till you see you experience Cleveland in the playoffs. And we're here now, and I can't wait to see the fans rooting and cheering us on.
I'll be one of those fans on Sunday. So Can't wait. Johnny, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck in the
Thank you.
playoffs.
Appreciate it. Thank you.